Hey everyone, this is Sean Deveney from Heavy.com Sports here in snowy New England. In fact, it's so snowy that Steve Bulpett, our NBA insider, is all bundled up, even on the inside, Steve.
Well, it's an ocean right outside there, and we're looking at a couple of feet of snow and some like winds in the 60s, perhaps 60-mile-an-hour winds, and a tidal surge and all kinds of fun stuff.
It is fun. It's winter in New England, so we always get one of these at least, and hopefully, I think the aim is just one. Like one I can deal with. If we get too many, it gets forget it. No, thank you.
Yes. Well, I mean, with living this close to the elements, there's always the potential that this could be our final video. So let's try to screw this one up, okay, Sean?
All right, not this time, right?
Unlike the other ones, let's try to get this one right.
We'll do our best. Speaking of screwing things up, I wanted to start with the Lakers because I talked to an assistant coach today, somebody who knows Vogel pretty well, not a Lakers assistant, but somebody else who knows Frank Vogel pretty well, and kind of watched that game last night. Where they lose. Obviously, no AD, no LeBron, so you got to put an asterisk next to it. But they also put DeAndre Jordan in the starting lineup. And the quote from the coach was, Frank Vogel is now on a kamikaze mission. He's going to go down fighting. He's going to go down swinging, and he doesn't care at this point. There was a report in the LA Times about a week ago, 10 days ago, that said that Kurt Rambis had come in and sat in on one of the coaches' meetings, which is a rare thing for the front office to do, and basically said, you got to start playing DeAndre Jordan more. We should be going big. And so not only did Frank Vogel put DeAndre Jordan on the court, he had him starting. He didn't play Dwight Howard at all. Dwight Howard's been a much better player this year. I think that's Frank Vogel sort of thumbing his nose and saying, hey, if you're going to fire me, let's get this over with. It almost seemed like that's what's going on in LA. So, interesting game last night. I just wonder if you step back and look at this team, though, do you still see a contender here?
Well, look, in a case where you've got, you're without Anthony Davis and LeBron James, it's not a realistic barometer of your team, right? So if the front office is pushing for DeAndre Jordan, who, by the way, if he could really still play, he wouldn't be on the Lakers now. He'd be elsewhere. He wouldn't have moved on from where he'd been. So it's like, here, you want to see it? Here it is. If you want to find out what DeAndre Jordan is for you, today's DeAndre Jordan, there you go. In terms of the Lakers, I think none of this matters. If there's, with all the potential palace intrigue of Kurt Rambis coming down and sitting in a meeting and things like that, the bottom line here has always been and remains, if you have relatively reasonable health between LeBron James and Anthony Davis come the playoffs, then you've got your shot. Things obviously have not worked out with Russell Westbrook, who, I'm still not sure why people are surprised that this guy, he's a numbers person. And in terms of that translating to victories, there are two different kinds of situations that in play here. Do you contributing to winning in the overall sense, and sometimes people get, I think they get swayed or just glassy-eyed with seeing some guy posting this, averaging a triple-double, things like that. I'll repeat this, and I know we've mentioned it before, but the example I will continue to use is that there wasn't a day in Bill Russell's life that Wilt Chamberlain wasn't a more talented basketball player. But Bill Russell understood the object of the game in a way that Wilt Chamberlain never did. Yeah. Therefore, Bill Russell is the greatest winner in the history of team sports, and Wilt Chamberlain, for all his brilliance and greatness, is not.
Yeah.
So there, but if they figure out how, do you think, as long as you got LeBron and you've got Davis and you've got some reasonable people to put around him, you're going to have a shot in any playoff series.
That by the way, folks, is the snowed-in Steve Bulpett, thus the gloves and hat. And we're
just shovel my way to the kitchen. It's terrible.
And yeah. I mean, I think there is some shock around the league that the Lakers keep pushing DeAndre Jordan out there. And when I look and I make the mistake sometimes of checking Twitter, which none of us should spend too much time doing. But when I look at something like Twitter and all that, people say, "Oh, what is Vogel doing?" And again, like just talking to people around the league, I think what Vogel's doing is saying, "You want DeAndre Jordan? Here you go. Let's go." I can't say I blame him for that. So, certainly some interesting things with the Lakers. As always, we'll see if they have anything in them in the next 12 days before that trade deadline. Hard to see anything really coming.
Yeah, look, let's say this too, that Frank Vogel he's not coaching for his job in the sense that he's like desperate to keep a job. Frank Vogel is set, and he's a very good basketball man, and he's a very good person. So if he wants to stay involved in basketball, he's going to have no difficulty at all staying involved in basketball. If the Lakers want to fire him from this, I was going to say, Hollywood drama, but it's a bad Hollywood drama. So be it. Not a problem.
Yeah, he's under contract for next year. He's going to get paid for next year. Like you say, there'll always be at least an assistant coaching gig. He could probably go do TV for a little bit. Boost up his stock a little bit more.
He could have his college jobs. I mean, he'd be in terms of knowing Frank, I'm sure you do as well. His personality, he'd be perfect for a college job as well. Not that he wouldn't be great in the pros. He's proven he can do it in the pros. No worries for Frank Vogel. The guy's, he's got his head together very well. And I've always appreciated that about Frank.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Louisville's got an opening. Maybe he's got an eye over there already. He's got, hey, hurry up and fire me so I can go take the Louisville job. Another team I want to get to, and again, I'm Sean Deveney with Heavy.com Sports. This is the very chilly and snowed in Steve Bulpett on the island in Nahant, Massachusetts, braving the elements to talk NBA here. Is the Knicks, and there's been a lot of talk about what's happened with the Knicks. 41-31 last year. They've really struggled this year. I think that one of the things that's happened, as tends to happen over the course of time, A, with Tom Thibodeau, no matter what, and then B, anytime a season goes badly, is you get some grumblings out of the locker room that players aren't happy with the coach, and again, we've seen that with Tibbs in the past, and we're seeing it now. Some reports coming up this week. Does that surprise you? Is this sort of what you would expect given the way the year's gone?
Surprises me not in the least. As a coach, Tom has a different expiration date. Best used before this date here. It does not last well because he runs hard on people, and a couple things in play I think with the Knicks, and you can look at it in one sense, and I think this is usually a cliche, but in this case, at least partially valid. They went from being the hunters last year to being the hunted this year. They came out of nowhere last year. This year, everyone expected them to be very good. And guys who had good years last year, the Julius Randles, people like that who had kind of breakout years, all of a sudden, some people start thinking they're in better situations or better positions than they were before, and I think it messes with the chemistry. And then you've got a style of play that I don't think necessarily plays to your strengths. That team, you still want to get up and down the floor with that team, and they haven't done enough of that. They do reasonably well when they go to their bench. And you get a guy like Toppin, the second-year player, who will get up and down the floor and play that kind of game for you, which is great. But I think the fact that in an up and down game, there's less control for the sideline could be a problem here. That could be creeping in. And you've got guys that, hey, look, I was your star last year. Why aren't I, your featured guy now? And, they're not playing in a way that maximizes, I think, their talent.
Yeah, and it's an interesting situation because they're, some reporting this week and some things that have been floating around that, they're looking to get rid of some of their veteran guys to help. We talked about this before with the Celtics, sort of in the same position, disappointing year. Let's see what we got with some of these young guys. And the Knicks have a bunch of young guys. If there's a reputation that Tom Thibodeau comes with, though, it's that he ain't going to play the young guys. So I do wonder if the front office, which Leon Rose was Tom's agent, so obviously they're close. It's not like there's a lot of distance there. But if the front office wants to start playing the young guys, that doesn't seem to jive with what Tom's history has been.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to get out of it because you've got a bunch of veterans and you're paying Evan Fournier, who I think is a really good player, but he needs some consistency around him. He needs to know that the ball is going to move, and that he played well in Boston last year with Kemba, especially when those two guys could be on the floor together. They work really well off each other. Now, obviously, Kemba's issues with the knee, with his health, things like that. Is he going to be able to be there for you consistently? But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's you need to play some younger guys, and you need to establish a rotation. But he's got a lot of guys. They got a lot of guys they're paying, and I think the players' individual opinions of their own talent, they might be correct in those opinions, but you still have to figure out a way that it makes it all work. As a whole. And for that to happen, even your best players have to be able to sacrifice. It's the coach's job to convince them of that and how it's better for them in the long run, and exactly how they have to sacrifice, in what ways. Is it touches? Is it shots? Is it just you have to sacrifice some minutes because we want you to run hard to the corner on every transition just to open the floor?
Yeah, and that's easier to do when you're 10 games over 500 rather than when you're 3, 4, 5 games under 500 and getting booed at home. I think that's part of what they're dealing with. And I wonder too, like when you go out and you make two big transactions, you get Kemba, you get Evan Fournier, and now there's talk that, well, maybe they try to get rid of both of these guys that, just a few months ago they were trumpeting. That's a bad look, I think, in front of the public, for one thing. It's also a bad look with agents and things. If you're Evan Fournier and you sign on, you get this big deal, and then they ship you out the first chance that they get, at the first trade deadline, that's a bad look. It becomes a little bit difficult, I think, to trust the front office, if you're a player, if you're an agent.
Yeah, I hear that, but I think what it always comes back to with agents and the players they represent is going to be the dollars. What can you pay me? That, let's see, situation. How much you pay me? Oh, the situation just got a lot better. Yeah. I mean, they went out and they got, in Kemba, it was a great story. Kemba Walker comes back home, comes to a building that he's had tremendous success in, going back to UConn days. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And it because of his health, I believe, it just hasn't worked like they want to. I think, hey, if Kemba's health could be controlled, could be consistent, he'd still be in Boston.
Yeah. That's interesting because I go back and I was in the building a lot. I know you were in the building a lot when Kemba's knee first really started to be an issue. It was like January, 2019. And, it was weird because they kept saying, well, 2 weeks or 2 weeks. It was something that it was obvious that whatever they were hoping it wasn't what it was. Did you ever think that like 2 years later, this would be the thing that really sank Kemba Walker and took his career at that point? Remember, he was an all-star there. He was playing great. And that knee has really just, I mean, in a matter of 2 years, that's it.
Well, yeah, it's I think easy to understand, because when you're a small player, you need to have the jets. And Kemba was a guy that would get to the basket because of his speed, and he's a guy that's always played in big contact, through big contact, and that wears on a guy. I think that tends to hasten a guy's demise once it starts to go downhill a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy that just, like a guy who's a shooter, a JJ Redick type, who can just sit outside. That guy's like a lefty specialist coming out of your bullpen. Those guys have long lives. But when you're talking about someone that, needs to have that physicality, that speed to break free and get his shot, and you see the times when it's still there for Kemba, he has these brilliant nights.
Right.
But as a team, you need to count on it being there as a reasonable facsimile on a consistent basis, so you can learn how to play around that and how it's going to fit.
Yeah, and I think we saw that earlier with Thibodeau, kind of, saying he's either going to be a starter and play some serious minutes, or we're going to take him out and he's not going to play at all. Yeah,
that was, nice tough guy look, but it didn't do anything for the team, and it hurts because, you're telling other teams that you might want to move him to, can't play.
Yeah. Right. It's
you're valuing your asset.
Yeah, you're making it all or nothing, and when it's nothing, then teams are going to say, no thanks, we'll move on. Yeah. Thank you very much. I wanted to move on. We've got Sean Deveney here with Heavy.com Sports and our NBA insider, Steve Bulpett, all bundled up on the island of Nahant.
I think you should change that to your NBA staying insider.
Staying insider, that's right. Very good. That's clever. I like it. Staying insider, at least for the next 2 days. Steve Bulpett. And, Steve, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Warriors here because I think they're an interesting team with the start that they got off to and sort of how they look now. They look, they get Klay Thompson back. They've lost Draymond Green. They've won 4 straight. Now they've definitely pulled it together. But it's been a weird year for them because, they look so invincible early on. Then they get, you get Klay back, and then people kind of step back and say, wait a minute, Steph Curry is really having a hard time shooting the ball. He's not shooting. He's not having a great shooting year here. I think there's some concern that maybe a team that looked like it was destined for the NBA Finals, has shown some warts a little bit. Is there anything to that, first of all? And do you think what do you think there might be some remedies there?
Well, I don't worry about the Warriors in the least. Steph Curry is going to work himself and to be ready. He's an incredible. The time he puts it in his shot should be a lesson to every young player out there. I told the story with you about how after practice he's getting up 253 pointers. I mean, this guy works. You shouldn't worry about Steph Curry in his game. I think the biggest issue they have is that there's a been there, done that quality to the veterans there, and there's a bit of a maybe it's a bad word, but a boredom that sets in with the regular season process. But that's a group of guys that knows how to react when it matters. Yeah, the young guys have got to come along, and they're going to need contributions, but damn, you've got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, who's still finding his way back in. I don't care how well he plays on given nights, he's still got to find that rhythm and how to make that work in a longevity situation during a season. And you've got Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, who is a perfect counterpoint guy. We looking over here, you're so busy worried about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And, oh, wow, that's why Andrew Wiggins is killing you.
Yeah.
Because, it's having, when you're able to load up to guys, it makes life easier. But I mean, I'll go back to the old days in Boston. Having Larry Bird, on the perimeter gave Kevin McHale an extra second or half second to make his move inside. A defender couldn't drop down on him so quickly because he had to be concerned about Bird. Similarly, being concerned about McHale, maybe made a closeout to Bird a little longer, gave Bird maybe another split second to get off his shot. It all works in concert, but that's a group that I don't see there being any head problems there.
Yeah,
which means I think that they'll be fine. And look, we're in the
dog days here,
NBA dog days.
Yeah.
And if you're around here, they'd be sled dogs. But yeah, it's that time of the year, and that's the one team I think I'd worry the least about getting it together for a postseason run.
Yeah, and when it comes to the trade deadline, I think one of the issues is, like you said, they're not going to trade Wiggins. I think there was a chance that might have happened last year if they had gotten the right offer, but the way he's played this year and how effective he's been, that's not happening. And so, talking to a personnel person earlier this week, and what I was told is, okay, what are they going to do though? What is the real deal that they could actually do? They'd probably consider trading Moses Moody. That's what I've been told, is that he would be. He's I think he's got a lot of upside. Everybody knows that. He's been fantastic in the G League. They really like him. They've got Jordan Poole sort of long term as their other wing. So I think that they're really not looking at him as somebody that they necessarily need to keep and they'd be willing to part with. They have a draft pick this year that they could move, and probably Looney's contract. They don't have a lot else that they can use to kind of, you got to be able to build up to a contract number to match salaries with somebody else. They don't really have a lot. If all you do is Moody and Looney, you're at $8.5 million, and you really can't get, that you can maybe get yourself up to about a $10 million deal with somebody else that's coming in. But who's out there that's going to, at that level, basically a mid-level contract, that's going to improve the Warriors? There's nobody. So they would rather just sit on Moody and keep him. But at least that's sort of what the thinking is. If they did need to make a move, it's hard to see where one is really going to be necessary.
Well, here's what shows you the situation that the Warriors are in. Let's leave the cap aside right now. Because there are always ways to be creative, I think. But here's, I think, a point that shows you where they are. I think the Warriors would love to acquire a guy like Marcus Smart. But if they were to acquire Marcus Smart, how does he, how much can you play him? How much is he going to even play for you? They'd love to have a guy that they can throw out there as an attack dog, a smaller version perhaps of Draymond Green, go out there, guard multiple positions, be a guy that can make those game-changing plays for you at critical spots. But how many minutes would Marcus Smart get on that team?
Yeah, when you look at the guard,
that shows you how good they are when, a guy like that they really, I think, like, how often are you going to be able to get him on the floor?
Yeah, because you've got Poole and Iguodala off the bench as well. In addition to, you're going to play Steph, 35 minutes, and Clay. Hopefully, eventually, he'll be, in the 30 to 35 minute range. So, not a lot of minutes there left for backcourt guys.
Yes, true.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you so much for shoveling yourself out and coming in front of your computer camera today. And thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll be back soon with another edition. And stay safe, stay warm.